challenges here and there, but invited you for a training workshop on open access and digital archiving, which will run all the way to around lunchtime. And later on, we'll have a small presentation on the NRF National Research Repository. So at this point, I want to welcome our CEO to give some opening remarks. And I request that we do a small session and then we break for tea around 11, if you don't mind. We'll do the introductory part, then we can break for tea, then come back. I'll now invite my CEO, Professor Dickson Adara, to give the opening remarks as we start off this training workshop. Prof, welcome.
We've got a series of events that are going to run along the 5 days that we are here. This being a preliminary event for which we are training our researchers on matters open access and archiving. So it is an honor to welcome you all to the inaugural Kenya National Research Festival. This festival marks a significant milestone in our journey towards advancing research and innovation in Kenya. The theme of this festival is research partnerships and collaborations for socio-economic transformation, and is a testament for the crucial role that research plays in our nation's development. Through research, we can catalyze national growth, address societal challenges, and pave way for the prosperous future. The National Research Fund is committed to supporting research initiatives that thrive socioeconomic development. This festival is designed to bring together researchers, innovators, stakeholders from across the country and beyond to share knowledge, foster collaborations, celebrate the impact of research in our society. And to just take note, we've got our colleagues from NRF. NRF is National Research Foundation South Africa, who are going to take us through this process of training on open access and digital archiving. Over the next few days, we will explore key research areas including health and life sciences, agriculture and food security, digital transformation, and more. These areas are critical to our national development priorities and align with the Kenya Vision 2030 and the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, BETA model. I encourage all participants to engage fully in discussions, exhibitions, and networking opportunities that this festival offers. Let us use this platform to inspire Let us use this platform to inspire the next generation of researchers, recognize excellence, and build sustainable partnerships that will advance our research ecosystem. As we embark on this journey, let us remember the power of research to transform lives, drive innovation, and create better future for all Kenyans. Your active participation will make this festival a success and contribute to the growth of our nation. Before I formally open this workshop, I want to also inform you we've got the YSK, that is the Young Scientists Kenya, who are also exhibiting their research outputs at from high school level, and we would wish to have them now grow the journey of becoming future scientists. So take time also to visit the booths of these young scientists so that you can be able to mentor them and encourage them. With that, I welcome all of you to the Kenya National Research Festival 2024. Let us collaborate, innovate, and transform our future through research. With those few remarks, I declare this workshop open. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for those opening remarks. At this point, I want to introduce our facilitators this morning for this workshop. We have Dr. Muchono and Ms. Puleng. Maybe you can wave Puleng where you are. And then I'll invite Dr. Muchono to give some highlights of the training and the objective of the training before we break for tea and embark on the real training. Thank you, Kalip. Welcome.
Thanks, Jacob. Morning, everyone. And it's easier for me to say this. Thank you to the CEO of NRF, because it's the same thing that we will say at home. Yeah. So today I'm Nokuthula Mchunu. You can call me Nox in short. So I'm going to take you through a training or workshop or more of a discussion on open access and digital archiving. So just to set the scene for this is, why do we want to do this training? I always find it a bit hard for me short people, because I tend to hide behind the podium. So imagine this, and most of you here are researchers or involved in research in some capacity. So as we go through our research process, you do your research, you find great findings, and then after that, you will publish your work. Is that all correct? Most of us publish our work in journals, or most of us publish our work in journals. Then once you publish your work, your work belongs to the publisher or the journal, right? Thereafter, let's assume somebody here in Kenya wants access to that information. What will happen is that they will probably not have access unless their institution is paying for that access. But if we really think about it, that country or that researcher already has paid for the journal before it was published. But once it belongs to a publisher, they have to pay for it to access it again. So the reason why we then conduct this workshop on repositories and digital archiving within the continent is to try and preserve and disseminate and share information on open repositories on work that is done in the continent, so that it is freely available to everyone. So we will use what we call Africa Archive as accessible to the stakeholders. So the most important thing that I hope that you will take away from this workshop is to make sure that you understand that the repositories or the archives are there for your work. We are not saying that you should not publish in journals. You could publish your work there, but by depositing your work or uploading your work in repositories, you are making sure that people who are not financially able to pay for a journal can access your work. Your work will still be ascribed to you. Your work will be disseminated at a much, much wider range, and will be always safeguarded in their repositories, unlike if that journal changes a name or it totally shut down and your work is lost. So I will stop there for now and allow you to go for tea, and then we can start our training proper.
Once the screen setup is okay, we'll be able to continue the training. Just give us a few moments.
training, as I said before, that we're trying to capture all the research that is done in a digital archive so people can access it, disseminate it, and also save it for long-term storage. So, of course, when you do this type of work, you have to ask yourself, who owns research data or knowledge or the information that you produce? So we really have to think about this. Is it you, the researcher, or the institution that you work for, or the funder that gave you money, or in some cases, the researcher belongs into a group, and then, of course, is it the public, is it no one, or everyone? So when we work with information as we go through this training, we have to think about this. And if we think about the process in general of doing research and research funding, is that as a researcher, you either apply for funding from your institution or from the funder or from a donor, then you will do your work. So at the end of the day, who owns the research work? So in most of the cases, because the work is publicly funded, we would normally say the public or it's owned by everyone. So when you think about this, is that now when everyone owns the data, minus, of course, I won't discuss in detail IP issues in this room, minus IP-related information on the data. So how do we share information so that everyone benefits? So this first session, I'll try to go a bit quicker because of time. We're gonna talk about key open science principles or practices for scholarly publishing. So when we talk about scholarly publishing, we talk about communication or manuscript or data that is done by academic for academic use. So in the world, if we look up until 2018, when we looked at what the continent is producing relatively to the world, it is said that Africa produces less than 4% of the knowledge in the world. Africa makes about 15% of the world's population. So is it fair that we say Africa produces less than 4%? Is it really true that Africa produces less than 4%? So there are certain factors that influence these numbers. One of those is, of course, that the research that we do, most of the scholars in the continent are forced to publish in the journals in the global north. Please excuse me from using these definitions. It's just for a lack of better words that exist. So I will keep using global south and global north. So when the scholars in the continent are forced to publish in journals in the global north, the first thing you'll be told is that the research you do is not relevant. Of course, it's not relevant to the global north, but it's relevant to your community. It means it's not acceptable, but it doesn't mean you do not produce knowledge. Two, one of the barriers is the cost of the actual publishing. So in this day and age, for the past 10 years or so, but it has become really prevalent in the last 6 or 5 years, is the model to pay to publish. So if you have now a good paper and you need to publish it, and then it costs you $2,000 to publish a paper. I'm not sure how much is $2,000 in Kenyan shillings, but I know in South African rands it's closer to 40,000 rands. That's a lot of money. It's half a master's scholarship. It's a whole year of registering in a university for a master's scholar. You're only publishing one paper. The question then becomes, how many researchers in the continent can afford that cost? It brings down our numbers and contribution. The next thing that kind of influence what we do is that most of our universities subscribe or are part of these university rankings. So universities are ranked according to certain factors A, B, and C, and then you are forced as an academic to try and work on this. Some of the things, again, that stops or prevents most African scholars from publishing is this bias of editorial boards. So if editorial boards are composed mostly of people from Europe or the US, of course, when somebody submits a paper from a particular country in the global north, there's already what we call geo-discrimination. They say, no, this person is from South Africa, I don't know, KZN, there's no way they can do this work. But if somebody is from the UK, of course they can do that work. So how does open science play into this? So the definition that we were working on today is based on the UNESCO recommendation, that it aims in that first bullet, make scientific knowledge multilingual. So can you imagine in a space where all our research, the UNESCO recommendation. For today, we're gonna speak on that one pillar. There's many of them, but we're gonna talk about open access, which is access to information. So some of these values of open science is, of course, you still have to have quality and integrity, benefit for the society, equity and fairness, diversity. And you can have a look of those principles of open science. I'm going to go a bit quicker on my presentation because of time, but I will share this training with the organizers so they can share with everyone who's registered. And of course, you could find this training in the repository that I'm going to show you just now. So, of course, open access is to make your research achievement discoverable and accessible. So, I first want to pass this point to you. When we talk about your research achievement, we are not talking about only your journals. Some of you in your research, you do training. You can put that training as an output. Some of you, like I am today, have a PowerPoint presentation. This is an output that can be shared because this is your presentation that you prepared, but you can share it with somebody. And that requires time, and this should be attributed to researchers. A photo is a research output. A video is a research output. A drawing is a research output. How currently the system is. So the repository that I'm going to show you takes every type of a knowledge item that you produce, it can be deposited. So how do we make these items accessible? So the most important thing about making an item, not an article, I'm not using that word, an item. It could be a photo, it could be a video, it could be a journal article. It could be notes for students, it could be teaching material, is to make them fair. We use this term, it must be fair. What do we mean when we say fair? It must be findable. So if I'm here today, my colleague Puleng is taking a photo. That photo in my phone is useless because it is not findable by anyone. So how do you make it findable? Is to put it in a added metadata on the photo. When I talk about metadata, I talk about things like the photo was taken at the NRF Kenya event for training. So if somebody is looking for a word in Google says training, that photo will pop up. NRF Kenya, that photo will pop up. But that photo will have a number. And most of you, that number, you know it as a DOI. So a DOI is a form of a persistent identifier. An OKID number is a form of a persistent identifier. So it's important for these repositories to be able to give researchers these PID numbers. That when you add your information, the repository attaches this number, that this number belongs to the item that belongs to this particular researcher. That means it will be easy to find. It is findable. It is then have to be the A, accessible. So now I have made this photo, is in a repository, I've added the persistent identifier, but I've locked the repository. It can only be accessed by users who are registered for this. So it is not truly accessible. So accessibility is important. Then we have what we call interoperable. So what for Google, if we have to think Google as a repository, if you type something on Google, it will send you somewhere else. And you may arrive at a particular page, and that page sends you somewhere else. It means those pages are working together. They can operate together. So we want repositories to be able to operate together. So if I have a repository in South Africa, a repository in Kenya, somebody in South Africa who wants information on that repository should be able to access it. They must be able to operate. And then the R is reusable. If you put information or knowledge, somebody must be able to read it, reference it. That's one way of reusing it. Or they can be able to take that information, add their information, and arrive at a different conclusion. It must be reusable. You can't put information that nobody can read, nobody can reanalyze, because it's not useful. So it must be reusable. Reusability of information, especially data in the continent, I find it critical and important. With limited resources, being able to reuse data is important. So can you imagine, for example, I want to know what temperature it was in the month of August in Nairobi. So somebody plots the data every day. And then they write a paper and say, in August, the week of the 19th to the 23rd, it was cold. But they don't put the actual degrees on there. They just say it was cold. Then somebody comes next year and say, I want to check what is the change of temperature from August last year to this year. They go and find the paper. Yes, it was cold, but there's no data. Then they will say, what do we need to do? They may want to say they need to buy data, but they cannot reuse that end information. Instead, if the original researcher had put the exact degrees, maybe it's 23 degrees today, and it's easier to plot and reuse the data. So it is important to use FAIR principle when you deposit or share your information. In commercial journals, they do this for you when you submit your paper, because of course they have lots of money and they want to sell a certain image, but repositories also need to be able to provide FAIR, especially with persistent identifiers. There are other principles that have also come through in these recent years, is what we call CARE principles. So your CARE principles, especially for us in the continent, really are important for indigenous knowledge data and information. Because if you use the FAIR principles, right, you can go to, I don't know, indigenous group, they have information, you just take it from them, you deposit it and you make it FAIR. But it does not follow what we call CARE principles, because CARE principles now talks about collective benefit. That information that is being shared, how is it benefiting the society? Are you just simply taking or extracting information from one community and sharing it for another community at a cost of another community? And authority of control. We know with indigenous knowledge systems or traditional knowledge systems, the authority of that knowledge should rest with them. They must tell us how to share, when to share, whom to share it. The data does not belong to the researcher. It belongs to the authority of the traditional knowledge holder or IKS knowledge holder. And responsibility. How we share information and with whom, we must be responsible. You must think of this again in health, in saying a group or a particular group of people have this heart disease or A, B, and C without asking them if you can share this knowledge. And of course, it's obvious, E is ethics. We must try to follow ethical protocol when we are sharing information. So I've started talking a little bit about persistent identifiers, that they are important to find the information. So I've made examples of persistent identifiers, which is DOIs, which are attached to a particular item, and ORCID IDs, which are normally attached to a researcher. And then, of course, we have RAW, which assigns PIDs to institutions. So when we talk about persistent identifiers. For example, they are all connected. So if you see you have a researcher there, they have their IDs, they produce certain items, but they work for a particular organization. So you can ask a question if you want to know what's happening in a particular organization, or you can ask what does a particular researcher produce, or you can then search for a specific item. A little bit on this, I'll go quickly on licensing. It's important to think about licensing and the decision tree about how you share certain information. Some information or processes can be produced using specific software that may require licensing. So licenses themselves have open license, you have closed licenses, you have paid licenses. So these are some of the questions or the decision tree you can use to reach a decision how you share this information and where to publish. So I'm going to now go to the next section on discovering results, your research results. So how do you discover research results? And of course, there are certain engines. For example, I know most of us use Google Scholar, but now we have what we call OpenAlex, you have the Lens. These are just some of the examples of databases that are there. And of course, if you've used Google Scholar, you just put the item, you can see the university and the researcher that is involved in there. I'm going to now talk about what really I'm trying to preach today is preprints and preprints repositories. So preprints and preprints repositories operate a little bit different from your actual articles. So when we talk about preprints, we are talking about an item of a journal that it is still work in progress. It has not been peer reviewed. You have just simple typed a draft document. You can deposit it in a repository as a preprint, or you can deposit in a, I will now start using the word archive instead of repository. Then in general, the manuscript that is accepted by a journal, it is post-print. It is the final version of whatever you submitted, unless, of course, some researchers, after you publish, think you still need to do some correction. And usually this translates into what we call a version of record. It is an end that will not change. So I will go back again just to explain this about preprints. You have a scientist or a researcher that produces information, they prepare a manuscript, they submit in a journal, it goes to the editor, it is reviewed by someone you don't know, then it is accepted, then you can publish. So when we talk about preprints, we talk about this process. So now you have a scientist, they prepare a manuscript, they then submit to a journal, but at a parallel process, they submit to a preprint server. It could be a repository and an archive. Then, of course, from there on, that manuscript or draft, it is now fully open. People can read it, although it's not been accepted in a journal. While that process of journal peer review takes place. As you know, some of the journal peer review systems can take a year or more. So imagine during COVID, if you had this situation in research where people were only publishing information only once it's peer reviewed. So, for example, in South Africa, I know researchers were working on different strains of COVID. If we had to follow this process, some of the strains we will still not know even today, because it will be sitting with some journal and some reviewers, and then, of course, the peer review process will take place. However, the process of preprints has radically changed this. So during COVID, a lot of research was published in repositories and archives and preprints. This was because of the agency of the work. So when people were when people were finished with their research, they would immediately write the manuscript and then publish it in a preprint server, then submit it to a journal to make sure that that information is available for the public and for governments to make decisions. So preprints are actually important to get the information quicker to the right people that require the information to make the decision. I think we are having some technical issues again. So I'm going to ask here in the room, just a show of hands, how many people have used an archive or a preprint service? I only see one hand. Or repository, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, thank you. So this is the problem, this is the challenge of using archives, is that us as academics, we are not very accepting of archives because we're still trained on publishing in journals. And also we fear that if you put your work in an archive, you might be scooped if it hasn't been published. In effect, this is not true. So when you publish in an archive or in a repository, it's actually easier to protect your work because somebody else may be also doing that research. But by you putting it in a repository, and of course with the right persistent identifier, you can show that this work, you had completed it before. Because when you go to the journal, they'll say, no, this work was published by somebody else, so you are late. You can actually protect your work as being the first person who published that type of work. However, we still need universities and research institutions to accept or give recognition to preprint deposits the same way they do to journals. So, of course, there are a couple of examples of these archives or repositories. Today, I'm going to talk about a little bit more about Africa Archive because this is what, as the NRF South Africa and AOSP, and also with our other partners, meaning NRF Kenya, we want to promote and support as an archive for the continent. And if anybody has another archive or repositories, we are open to making all these repositories interoperable with Africa Archive and connected. So, of course, there is a database where you can find these repositories. If you want to find a particular repositories in the continent, you can go to re3data.org. It keeps information on repositories. Before I forget, Africa Archive is what we call a generalist repository. It means you can deposit under any topic. There are repositories that are specific for a type of work. So, for example, bioarchive, it is for life sciences. So sometimes you may want to choose a repository that is specific for your community. So under that, for example, you can find there is a repository called Kenya Open Data. If you go to the repository, the R3 data repository that I talked about. So what is Africa Archive? So Africa Archive is a generalist repository that has been around for about 5 years. But in the last 2 years or so, as the African Open Science Platform, we have tried to adopt this repository, working with our other partners to support it so that it can be used in the continent. And currently, we are also trying to build an AI model for language underneath Africa Archive. This is because we believe that researchers can deposit in the language of their choice, and we hope the archive can translate for other people based on the language that you choose. Two, we think this language model or module is important because if you want certain information and somebody speaks French and that particular information is in English, if the repository can quickly do an abstract translation, it will not be accurate, that I might admit, but it will be probably more accurate than if that person was translating it themselves. So for example, I speak isiZulu, that's my home language. Imagine if somebody deposits information in Portuguese. I have no knowledge of Portuguese. However, if that item is in Portuguese and I click there and ask the repository to give me the abstract in English, for example, I can have an idea what that paper is about, and then see if it's really worth trying to find a translated version, because there'll be no way that I can translate that paper for myself. So yes, we acknowledge that the AI language module is not accurate, but it is useful for researchers to know if the information they're interacting with is useful to them. So we're trying to solve some of these barriers in the continent, which is language, which is underrepresentation of the research in the continent, the digital low visibility of scholarly output, and of course, restricted research funding. So in the archive, I won't do a demo. As you see in the program, I was going to ask you to try and go in your computers. For now, I'm just going to go through it myself. So you can submit research items. The research items can be moderated or peer reviewed. However, when you get the information, it will have an information to say this item has been peer reviewed or moderated or not, but it will still be available. Then in that archive, we assign DOIs. You can link your ORCID ID to the repository. If you already have an ORCID ID, you can just add it so that all the stuff that you deposit in this repository or Africa archive, it is easier to find. We are also working with Crossref, Web of Science, so that it can be indexed and that information can feed back to your profile. So, of course, we advocate and accept the use of African languages for research publication. So if you want to deposit your information in or your research in the language of your choice, you are more than welcome. We also, if you have time, we run webinars together with Ubuntu Net Alliance, where we publish or we talk about different topics under open science. So we've done different sessions with them where we talked about how we facilitate open science across the continent. So what types of research items you can deposit? So we'll just go through the system for now. So if you go on the landing page, that is the address of the repository. So if you type that address, it's africaarchive.ubuntu.net. So Ubuntu Net Alliance, some of you might know, is an alliance of all NRENs in the East and Southern Africa. So in Kenya, I know Kenneth is the NREN. They are part of Ubuntu Alliance. So it means that you guys sitting here are part of Ubuntu Net Alliance. So the reason why we ask Ubuntu to host the archive is to make sure that it is open for everybody. So it has moved from being standalone by being hosted by a network for education and research in the continent. So you can either register using your email if you want to deposit information. If you want to get information, you don't need to register. So there'll be a registration process, the usual. You add your ORCID ID, and then you will come to the next page. So in the next page on the side there, what we've started to do is that you will see we have what we call community, collections, item, and process. So today I will talk a little bit more about collections. So I'm going to showcase what we mean by collections. So once you are in Africa Archive, you want to deposit an item, you click collections, it will ask you what is the collection that the item you're trying to create. If you see there's quite a lot of things that are there. So you will probably choose what we call the general repository for now. So where everything, your conference paper, your workshops can be put inside. When you are in a community, which I'll show you, it will show and then you can choose that particular community. So today I'm going to demonstrate the collection that we did for COVID-19 rapid grant. It's called CARGIF. So the COVID-19 rapid grant started around 2020 as a response to COVID by African granting councils with certain partners, as you can see there with all our partners, and SGCI, which Kenya is part of, were part of this grant. So researchers apply for this grant, and under that grant, you had different themes that researchers were applying for and conducting research under that theme. So this project closed end of last year, 2023. However, the items for these collections are all sitting either with a commercial journal that the researchers published in, or they are sitting in their computer and their desktop. So imagine if in the next, hopefully maybe in the next round, we get another epidemic. We then have to use the information that was produced here. Of course, you'll have to check online the journals that publish this work. If they are not free, you'll have to pay for it. And also, you will only get information that is only published in commercial journal. Whatever training material, whatever presentation, whatever posters that were made, you will never get this information. So as the National Research Foundation of South Africa, together with the African Open Science, which I also work in, we have now started to think about how do we collect all the information on all the research programs that we do that are then deposited in the archive. So the COVID Rapid Grant is the first of this, where we then created a community. So when you look under those heading in the COVID Rapid Grant Fund, so if you go inside Africa Archive now and you type CARGIF, that will come out. So you can check or search by authors, which we had nearly 70 or so researchers in the project. You can search by title. You can even search by country. So you can check what Kenya did, and it will give you information. So this is free. If you type this, you don't have to pay. Even if you are not registered on the archive, you can. The registration on the archive, I'll go again, is for you to deposit, not to access. It's for you to add your information. That's why we need you to register. So if you look a little bit on that submission page, I won't go in detail, you will add the author or authors, the title or other titles you want to add. If it's already published, you can say that it is already published. This is important. Again, let's assume you did great work and you published in Nature. Right? Some people don't have access to Nature. By you adding that research article, you put the same number that you publish in Nature. It's easier for people in the continent to access that information without having to pay. And you, as an author, you have the right to repost that journal. You can also publish your unedited manuscript that was accepted, so that people again can have access to information. So I will scroll a bit faster on this. These are just on the things that you just need to add when you are adding an item. You will then paste your abstract. Again, I'm going to come back. That language module I show you, depending on what language you choose, when somebody has deposited their abstract, that abstract will be automatically translated. Then you can put whichever sponsors or funders that fund your research so that it's captured. This is all what we call metadata. Then, of course, you will, at the end, you can save if you still need to think about it, or you can just press deposit. Once it's deposited, it will have an DOI, and then people can access your information. So what I was talking about a little bit when I was saying that you add your sponsors, your country, because we can extract information on the archive based on country. You have Gambia as example, but all those African countries you can get information currently on the repository. So I am going to I'm going to stop here for the presentation, is that in the tables that you are sitting in, you don't need to move. I'm sure there is somebody who has a nice research article in their computer. Who has a nice research article in their computer? In each table, this must be done. And I'm going to give you, because Ms. Puleng, how long will be your presentation? 15 minutes. So I'm going to give you 20 minutes or so before she has to do a presentation, that I need you to pick an article in each table, and then I would like that article to be written in the language of that community that the article was aimed at. Not in English or whichever one. However, the nice thing about this, that article you're going to write in the language is for a newspaper. It's not for a journal. Because for this part, I try to make us understand that the research we do is not for the researchers. We don't do research for researchers. We do research for the community. I have a mother who's 78, right? I have published more than 30 articles when I lived another life. She has no idea. She has never seen one of them. But imagine if I had written just one in one pager in isiZulu. Just one, in a one pager that is understandable to her. She would have known what you do. So we do research for the community, but we don't write for the community. We write for our peers, our other researchers, so they can see what we do. But when you wrote to NRF Kenya or NRF South Africa, you said, oh no, I'm going to solve this problem in this community. So can we, in the table, so those are your group, pick one article. It cannot be more than one page. Translate it into a language of your choice. English is not allowed. In the language of your choice, in one page and is for a newspaper article. So I think at 1 o'clock, lunch is at 1 o'clock, Ms. Pulen. Lunch is at 1 o'clock, 1:15, yeah. So at 1 o'clock, I will go around the table to check the title of the newspaper article that's gonna come out. And then Ms. Puleng, after that, will do her presentation. Then you can go to lunch. I'm leaving this email to you because at the end of today, I want all those newspaper articles in my email because I'm gonna give it to NRF Kenya to be published. That's the email you will send your newspaper article, but you'll only get to lunch when I see the draft of the newspaper article. So no one will leave the room without the draft of the working paper. I will leave that there. I will let you talk among yourself, and I will do a walkabout around 5 to 1.
National Research Repository is a digital open access collection of research outputs from different research institutions funded by the National Research Fund. It will benefit both researchers and institutions, whereby the researchers, they'll expose the research outputs to the outside world, and most of all to the government and the marketplace, where we can be able to move the ideas, the research outputs to the market.
We started the project by first of all doing desktop standards and mapping the institutions that possess the thematic areas that we had focused on, which is land, water and energy. We identified that institutions, and thereafter we developed data collection tools for data analysis. And once we already developed the repository of the infrastructure, we engaged stakeholders in September 2023.
We've done the repository in a modular form, and we've only covered 3 sectors. We intend to expand into the other sections that we've not been able to harvest, and be able to build the repository. The other plans that we have is to set aside funds that will be able to be used for harvesting data and ensuring that it is kept current.
At the British Council, we are incredibly proud of our partnership with the National Research Fund, specifically through the support that we've been able to extend to help them get off the ground the National Research Repository. Fundamentally, we believe that knowledge plays a central role in addressing socio-economic challenges. And through such centralized platform, through the National Repository, we are helping the NRF to increase awareness of research that has been undertaken in Kenya. We are also helping to increase access to such research outputs, and by doing so, hopefully we are enabling potential users to access and to utilize this research to address national, regional, and global challenges.
Some of the key milestones that we have achieved during the development of the repository are that we've been able to create communities in the areas of land, water, and energy, and we already have data in that. And we have also been able to develop the open access policy. We have also had a few challenges during the journey for the development of the repository, because some of the work, research work, is not in digital format, and we could not capture that. So we're looking forward to work with more partners and see how we can digitize the work which is not digital format, so that it is also captured in the repository.
The benefits of National Research Repository to researchers will, one, increase their visibility on what they've worked on, and secondly, it's going to increase their rating as researchers in terms of research index. To the policymakers, the repository will provide an opportunity to generate information-led policy decisions.
It is our strong belief that the launch of Kenya's National Research Repository will make a direct contribution to knowledge dissemination and access, will facilitate the sharing of research findings, of data, and of methodologies, which will allow researchers, policymakers, but also businesses and the general public to access and benefit from the latest insights and advancements in research in Kenya.
We thank the British Council for coming in handy to support the National Research Repository. We are calling to more other like-minded partners to come join us research fund to expand beyond the scope that has been realized through the British Council.
We are already moving into a new phase of the project, which will see a mapping of research around food security and agriculture. And it is our strong belief that building on this proof of concept, other funders and other supporters from Kenya and overseas will acknowledge the value add of the National Research Repository.
The National Research Repository is a digital open access collection of research outputs from different research institutions funded by the National Research Fund. It will benefit both researchers and institutions, whereby the researchers, they'll expose the research outputs to the outside world and most particularly to the government and to the marketplace, where we can be able to move the ideas, the research outputs to the market.
We started the project by first of all doing desktop standards and mapping the institutions that possess the thematic areas that we had focused on, which is land, water and energy. We identified that institutions, and then after we developed data collection tools for data analysis. And once we already developed the repository of the infrastructure, we engaged stakeholders in September 2023.
We've done the repository in a modular form, and we've only covered 3 sectors. We intend to expand into the other sections that we've not been able to harvest and be able to build the repository. The other plans that we have is to set aside funds that will be able to be used for harvesting data and ensuring that it is kept current.
At the British Council, we are incredibly proud of our partnership with the National Research Fund, specifically through the support that we've been able to extend to help them get off the ground the National Research Repository. Fundamentally, we believe that knowledge plays a central role in addressing socio-economic challenges. And through such centralized platform, through the National Repository, we are helping the NRF to increase awareness of research that has been undertaken in Kenya. We are also helping to increase access to such research outputs, and by doing so, hopefully we are enabling potential users to access and to utilize this research to address national, regional, and global challenges.
Some of the key milestones that we have achieved during the development of the repository are that we've been able to create communities in the areas of land, water, and energy, and we already have data in that. And we have also been able to develop the open access policy. We have also had a few challenges during the journey for the development of the repository, because some of the research work is not in digital format, and we could not capture that. So we're looking forward to work with more partners and see how we can digitize the work which is not digital format, so that it is also captured in the repository.
The benefits of National Research Repository to researchers will, one, increase their visibility on what they've worked on, and secondly, it's going to increase their rating as researchers in terms of research index. To the policymakers, the repository will provide an opportunity to generate information-led policy decisions.
It is our strong belief that the launch of Kenya's National Research Repository will make a direct contribution to knowledge dissemination and access, will facilitate the sharing of research findings, of data, and of methodologies, which will allow researchers, policymakers, but also businesses and the general public to access and benefit from the latest insights and advancements in research in Kenya.
We thank the British Council for coming in handy to support the National Research Repository. We are calling to more other like-minded partners to come join us Research Fund to expand beyond the scope that has been realized through the British Council.
We are already moving into a new phase of the project, which will see a mapping of research around food security and agriculture. And it is our strong belief that building on this proof of concept, other funders and other supporters from Kenya and overseas will acknowledge the value add of the National Research Repository.
Sasuzokshintshela esikhaleni uyomufica ekhohlwe usekhona ayikunzima ukuthanda umuntu Sasuzokshintshela esikhaleni uyomufica ekhohlwe usekhona ayikunzima ukuthanda
Tí mo fẹ́ dé ẹ ṣe wá fún mi láti rí ọ̀nà mi ọmọlúwàbí mi ó ní láti máa bọ̀ ó máa sùn lọ síwájú kó tó ṣe mí bọ́. Morning. Ìgbà tí ayé ń sọ̀kalẹ̀, àwa máa tó wà lára. Ọmọ tí a jìyà kọ̀ọ̀kan ò lè já. Ìgbà tí ayé ń sọ̀kalẹ̀, àwa máa tó wà lára. Ọmọ tí a jìyà kọ̀ọ̀kan ò lè já. Ẹ sọ ilẹ̀kùn sílẹ̀, ẹni tí ó nílẹ̀ etí. Ọ̀nà kan wà fún wa. Ọjọ́ kan ní yóò okay for tomorrow. No give up, fight the sorrow. No matter what happen, you see by the morning. Okay for tomorrow. No give up, fight the sorrow. No matter what happen, you see by the morning.
The plains at dawn, voices sing along, drums beat loud and strong, heart of Africa. Warriors take their stand, protecting sacred land, from the sand to the grand lands of Africa. Ancestors of the brave, hear the call arise. From the earth we save, spirit never dies. River whispers tales, mountains wear the veil. Through the storm and hail, guardians of the skies.
again, everyone. While you are getting ready for your lunch, I'm going to ask Ms. Puleng to just do a short presentation on opportunities that NRF South Africa and NRF Kenya engages in. Then after that, we'll probably go to lunch. Then you can continue working on your newspaper article thereafter, and we can, after Ms. Puleng's question, because I don't want you coming back here after lunch, I can take questions and she can take questions, and then after that we'll break for lunch, and then you can email me those newspaper articles at any time today.
Yeah, it's fine. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Puleng Titlo from the National Research Foundation of South Africa. I work in the Strategic Partnerships Division at the NRF, and we are sisters with NRF Kenya. So we thought this is a great opportunity for us to show opportunities that are available for Kenyan researchers and students. So I'll just take you through a short presentation. I'm standing between you and lunch on those opportunities. I won't present everything today, but we'll leave our contact details that you can yes, so we will leave our contact details. Then if there's anything or any information you require, you can inquire through us. But we are not responsible for most of the programs that we will share on today. So we will link you up with colleagues that are responsible for those programs. The light is too bright for me. That's why I brought my laptop here. So the NRF, the National Research Foundation South Africa, is a public entity like NRF Kenya, and the mandate of the NRF as of the Amendment Bill of 2018 is to contribute to national development through funding, human capacity development, the provision of necessary research infrastructure, in order to facilitate the creation of knowledge, innovation, and development in all fields of science, humanities, social sciences, and IKS. Developing, supporting, and maintaining national research facilities, supporting and promoting public awareness of and engagement with science, and promoting the development and maintenance of national systems and support of government priorities. The NRF mandate is embedded in the following areas: advancing knowledge through support for research, provision of research infrastructure platforms, provision of research equipment, transforming lives through postgraduate support, and emerging researcher support. Is it on? Inspiring a nation through science engagement via education, awareness, and communications, and strengthening the national system of innovation by building partnerships and synergies, and providing system-wide information and intelligence to the government and the society. We would like to believe that the NRF is the largest public funder of research on the continent. We have a budget of about 350 million invested across all knowledge areas, And this includes funding that comes directly from the government, funding that we leverage, and through other contracts. The NRF takes a holistic approach through human capital development. Sorry. The NRF takes a holistic approach towards human capital development. So we take I hope you can hear me well. We take students as soon as they graduate. Okay, we start with them through our science engagement division. We start with them as they are young, try and interest them with science and technology studies, and then they go to varsity, and when they get there, as soon as they finish their undergraduate degree, the NRF comes in now, and we support them through student support. We take them, as they become next generation researchers, we take them through the pipeline. They become emerging researchers, established researchers, and strategic investments. And there are programs throughout that are dedicated to 4 of these groups. I'll show you some examples that may be relevant for Kenyan researchers and students. And we are embedded in the global knowledge and institutional networks, because we believe that's how we can put the South African system and how we can leverage globally. There's also strategic investment in advancing knowledge for society. So every year, the NRF launches calls for postgraduate funding. These are honors, masters, and doctoral funding. This was a call for the 2025 funding. It's mostly for South African students that are based in South Africa, well, South African and permanent residents of South Africa. But there's a percentage that is dedicated to students from the region, but you have to be placed in South Africa. You have to register at the South African institution, where your supervisors have collaborations with South African researchers. It can be a joint supervision, but you have to be based at a South African institution. Unfortunately, the master's and doctoral funding calls have already closed, but the honors funding, so these are just 2 examples. If you go to the NRF website, there may be more opportunities. So the ones that are currently open, it's the honors call. Yeah, both honors calls are open. But I encourage you to go to the NRF website, and then you will find more information there. So the emerging researchers and established researchers program, most of them are for researchers that are employed by South African institutions. So unfortunately for those ones, you will not be eligible to apply unless you get a job at one of the South African higher education institution or science granting councils. The NRF only supports public funding higher education institutions, so we don't fund private institutions. So this program is one of the examples of the strategic investments that was open a few years ago. You may have seen, some of you may have applied for this program. It's the OR Tambo Africa Research Chairs Initiative. I think it was launched around 2021, 2022, somewhere there. And from this call, 10 research chairs were awarded in the sub-Saharan Africa region. Unfortunately, Kenya was not successful in this program, but it's just an example of strategic initiatives that we have at the NRF working with other partners in the continent. I did say that one of the mandate of the NRF is research infrastructure provision. So the NRF also maintains and facilitates the national research facilities. We have 5 that fall under NRF: the South African Astronomical Observatory, South African Radio Astronomy Observatory, Itemba Labs, SCION, which is South African Environmental Observation Network, and then SciUp, South African Institute for Aquatic Biodiversity. There's actually another one that is responsible for science engagement. It's called SASTA. So at these facilities, so we always say that the NRF is a funder and a performer of research. So research is conducted at these facilities. So it's an opportunity for you as Kenyan researchers to collaborate with researchers at this institution, or to access their research infrastructure, or if there's a students that need training here and there, you can collaborate with them. Last year, we were hosted again by NRF Kenya in Mombasa, and we visited one of the research institutions there, Kimfrey, I think it's called. And it was encouraging to see that there's some work that they're doing with some of these facilities. This just shows the spread of the facilities in South Africa. With regards to the Africa engagements, NRF has 23 bilateral agreements with other countries. Some of them are country to country, like through our ministries, our Department of Science and Innovation, and the Ministries of Science and Technology, or Science and Innovation in other African continents. Some of them are just bilaterals between NRF South Africa and NRF Kenya, for example. So where there's an NRF logo, it's the countries that we have had joint bilateral programs with. And I am happy to say that we have had a very successful bilateral agreement with NRF Kenya, with South Africa Kenya, and NRF Kenya. I think we've had 4 or 5 calls that were launched between us, and we are currently doing a review of that program. Hopefully, depending on the outcomes, and if there's funding available, we will revive that bilateral agreement and launch calls for research. These are just some of other examples of the partnerships that we have on the continent. I'm sure some of you have heard or know about the Science Granting Council initiative in Sub-Saharan Africa. It's a multi-funded initiative. We work with 17 other science granting councils in the continent. And through that, it's aimed at capacitating the science granting councils. But through that program, we have had programs that have come as a result of the SGCI, the OR Tambo research chairs that I mentioned, the CAGF that Knox spoke about, I'll talk more about AJ Core, and I'll also talk more in the next slide on the EASA regional membership, the AOSP, which Knox is responsible for, the Future Africa. I think we'll talk more about this as well, and just other programs that we are involved in the continent. These are some of the multilateral research programs that I mentioned. So through the SGCI, we also support research projects. Unfortunately on this one, because NRF is a funder of the SGCI, we are not supposed to benefit from this one. So we support research between countries. For example, NRF Kenya has collaborative agreements with other councils or other countries. Of the 17, there's one, I think they were just successful now in one of the program. I forgot it's NRF Kenya and, you don't remember? Uganda. Yes, NRF Kenya and Uganda. So there's something coming for Kenyan researchers for a collaborative program between Kenyan researchers and Ugandan researchers. And there's been many more that have come out of the SGCI that the NRF and the DFG actually have supported. There are other projects that were supported by CEDA, by IDRC. And then the COVID Africa Rapid Grant Fund that Nox spoke about. The Global Research Council is a network of science funders in the world. So the SGCI is science funders in the continent, in sub-Saharan Africa. The Global Research Council, it's global. It includes other funders that are outside of the continent. And there was a call, the SDG pilot call, to accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. And I believe some of the Kenyan researchers were successful in this program. I don't have the numbers, but it's just one of the examples that we've been working with NRF Kenya on for the benefit of Kenyan researchers. Another program is the Africa-Japan Collaborative Research. So AJCO is a partnership between the NRF of South Africa and Japan Science and Technology Agency, which aims to support joint research and innovation projects in environmental sciences. We work with other science granting councils. NRF Kenya is one of them, and we've had 3 calls, I think, for AJCO. The 4th one will be, there's a slide actually on AJCO, which I will talk about later. Can I just check, of all the Africa programs and multilateral projects that I've mentioned, is there anyone that has benefited from these programs in the room? If you can maybe just raise your hand. AJCO, the Rapid Grant Fund, the SDG pilot call? No one? Okay, thank you. It means you are not getting the information. We'll make sure that it comes to you somehow. So yes, as I said, the AJCO, we are now on the 4th call. It's a collaboration between NRF South Africa and other science granting councils. The other science granting councils are also putting in money into the program, and that's why researchers from those countries are also able to apply through the call. The 4th call will be coming towards the end of the year. I'm not sure of the timelines, but in July, on the 18th of July, there was a webinar that was held. The challenge that we have realized in this multilateral programs is that the researchers sometimes struggle in finding collaborative partners. So this a webinar aimed to bring them together and link them up with other researchers from Japan, from South Africa, and from the other SGCI participating countries. As soon as the call is launched, I think it will be on the NRF Kenya website, it will be on the NRF website, it will also be on the SGCI website, so you can check them. These are just some of the networks that we are involved with between South Africa and NRF Kenya. The Global Research Councils, which I have mentioned, the ISC, I'm sure we all know the International Science Councils, and the committees that fall under the International Council, Future Earth, and the Africa Open Science Platform. So the other network I mentioned was the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. In response to the need for increased holistic approaches to address complex regional challenges, the NRF applied. So before 2022, the NRF had been a member of EASA. I think we were the only, it was us and Egypt that were members of EASA for a very long time. So when the SGCI was established and we started working with other science granting councils, we applied for a regional membership to include the other 17 councils, so that it's not just South Africa that is a member of EASA. So in 2022, a resolution was established to establish SAMO, which is the Sub-Saharan Africa Regional Membership Organization of EASA, and is the only regional member that EASA has. All the other members are national members, like we used to be before 2022. So what this means, okay, I'll get to those slides. So EASA is an international research institute EASA is an international research institute that applies system analysis to identify integrated solutions and policy insights to current, emerging, and global sustainability challenges, threats, and opportunities. The aim is to build a sustainable future and to help our research translate into policy. They also offer a lot of capacity training, development on systems analysis. They are available for research collaborations between South Africa. So as a regional member, you as Kenyan can access any opportunities that are available at EASA. So if there's a researcher or a research topic or project that you are interested in, by us being a member, then you are able to access or to talk to those researchers and access those opportunities. And then every year they have a call for postdoctoral fellowships and the Young Scientist Summer Program. The Young Scientist Summer Program usually takes place between June and September every year. The call will be open in October of this year. And then the postdoctoral fellowships as well, it's an annual call. I'm just not sure about the deadlines for this one. Like when is it opening and what the deadlines would be. So as Kenyan researchers and students, you are eligible to apply for all these opportunities at EASA. You can find the information on their websites, but we also post on the SGCI website, the NRF website, and we do share with NRF Kenya sometimes to disseminate. So through EASA, through the regional membership, we have established a Sub-Saharan Africa Systems Analysis Center, and we offer scholarships for doctoral students to come and study in South Africa. Unfortunately, for now, you have to be based in South Africa, but the plan moving forward is for all the regional members to be able to support doctoral students throughout their studies in partnership with EASA. For this call, we partnered with the British Council. Unfortunately as well, the call closed. This was for funding for next year. The call closed in July, but all the students in the 17, including South Africa, which makes it 18, students from those countries were eligible to apply for these opportunities. The next call, I think, will be next year. So the NRF launches a call every year between March and June. So if you can check for your students to be able to apply for these opportunities. I won't talk about the AOSP. I think Nox spoke more about this. And then the other network that we are involved in is the Belmont Forum. So the NRF, working with Belmont Forum, has developed a collaborative research action. We call them the CRA, call in support of Africa's Union climate, environment, and sustainability goals and priority areas for Agenda 2063. The call so initially it was led by the NRF, but other partners are available to contribute funds here, and those that have indicated that they want to participate in the CRA for environmental sciences are indicated there. So where it's submitted annexes, it means that your council or the country has committed funding to this call, and you are eligible to apply then for the Belmont Forum call. Knox is involved more on this one, so if there's anything I'm leaving out or is not correct, she'll correct me towards the end. So the call is currently out. The call is currently out. I think it's for expression of interest or pre-proposals, and then the full proposals will be in end of October, right? Yes. So the nice thing about this call is that it's led by African researchers. There's co-creation with non-academics, and it's multilingual. And then the other opportunities that is there is through the Future Earth. The NRF hosts the Future Earth Global Secretariat Hub for Africa. We coordinate and link the various sustainability initiatives across the continental regions. We create communities of practice that bring African scientists together in an African sustainability ecosystem. We facilitate strong working connections with society and government. We enable engagements, and we support young scientist initiatives. There was a call earlier this year for regional nodes, and they were announced in May. Annually, the NRF or Future Earth hosts the SRI conference, and then before that, there's a conference in all the regions. So for the Africa region, it was held in May, I think, and the nodes were announced there. And for the East African region, I think Kenya, University of, I'll remember the name, but it's based here, the regional node for East Africa. So it's also an opportunity for you to network and engage through it. I just thought I should share also opportunities that are coming or already, the calls are already out there. Knox didn't mention that she's hosting a big conference in December in Cape Town, South Africa. The call for abstract is closed, but if you are interested in the topic or the research there, then you are invited to attend. I'm not sure if the call for registration is open, but keep checking on the NRF website and the AOSP website for more information. And there's a call for the 5th Big Data Africa School that will also be hosted in Cape Town by NRF, one of the facilities of the NRF Sarao. The call is open to Kenyan researchers and students to participate. The deadline is next week, the 31st of August. As I mentioned, the Young Scientist Summer Program for IASA, the call will be opening in October of this year for 2025, and it will take place between June and September of 2025. And then the AJ Core Collaborative Research, the AJ Core call that will be launched shortly this year, it's the 4th call. And then the Africa-UK Physics Partnership Program, which is an intra-Africa research mobility and networking. It will be open also to the 17 countries of the SGCI. I'm not sure yet about the timelines for this ones, but we have a contact from NRF Kenya, so as soon as the call is out, we will share the information and then they will disseminate for you. Another program that will be coming soon is a multilateral call between the NRF, NWO of Netherlands and some of the SGCI countries that have committed funding to this one. It's the long-term Europe-Africa WEF Nexus research program, and the focus is on water, energy, and food. Yes, I think that is all that I wanted to share. If you need any information, you are welcome to contact us, but I encourage you to keep checking the NRF website, the AOSP website, the SGCI website as well. We don't have business cards, so I encourage you to take a picture of our details. And then yes, you can reach out at any time. But also just check with NRF Kenya. Whatever that we do, we are doing it in partnership with them, and they are aware of most of these opportunities. Thank you very much.
We can take one or two questions because of time, quickly. Do we have any burning questions? But we are still open to having discussions during lunch.
And we are here for the whole week.
Yes.
Bump into us, you can just ask any question or for information.
Yeah, so before I let you go to lunch, NRF Kenya has just wanted to, since we are talking about repositories, just to flight quickly on their launch of the national repository that we will currently discussing. I don't see the person who's supposed to. Yeah, and then once she's done, she will let you go. You can go to lunch. It's been great having you here. Do not forget to email me all those articles. And if you have any questions, as Puleng said, I'm here the whole week. We can continue having this discussion.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to apologize for standing here. I know it's lunchtime, but I'll take the shortest time possible. My name is Jacqueline Muyalo from National Research Fund, and I'm just going to take you shortly on our repository, because during the training we were being told how we can hike up digitally our research output. So I just wanted to introduce our institution as National Research Fund. We are the national funding agency in Kenya. We established under the STI Act of 2013, and we became operational in 2015. And our core mandate is to allocate, to mobilize, allocate, and manage financial resources to facilitate research for the advancement of science, technology, and innovation. I'm just going to highlight just few key functions of NRF, where one, we are supposed to mobilize resources for national innovation, systems for the government, from the government, private sector, venture capital, and development partners and other sources. That's where we mobilize our resources from. And after we resource mobilize, we are supposed to prudently manage and invest the funds towards research development. We are supposed also to support development of human resources through grants to persons or research institutions or universities. We are supposed also to allocate funds to research and promote multidisciplinary collaboration among universities and research institutions, and that one has been so core to us. And to link one of the functions to our repository is we are supposed to compile and maintain a national database of research and innovation projects that we have been funded as NRF, and those others funded by other agencies. So just to take you through how the background information about our national repository, it is a comprehensive and centralized online platform which is designed to store. Sorry, I'm not moving my slides. So it's a comprehensive centralized online platform designed to store, manage, and provide access to national research data. And the rationale of developing this national research repository was to address the fragmentation of research data across various institutions. And it also aligns with one of our core functions, which I've mentioned. We are supposed to compile a national database for the research which has been funded by NRF and other agencies. And the initial phase of this development of the repository, we were funded by the British Council and foreign Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, and they supported us to put in data on land, water, energy, food, nutrition, security, and sustainable agriculture. So when you go to our repository, that's the research outputs we will get. So why did we come up with the repository? First, or the importance of this repository, it will complement the disintegrated institutional repositories by domesticating all research outputs. Meaning our repository is not coming to abolish the institutional repositories, but is here to have that information in one-stop shop. So it's also increased the visibility of research outputs of our researchers, because when we put it online there will be a lot of people who will be searching for that information, and our researchers and research institutions will be able to get the viewership from all across the world. It will also provide a national platform for different actors in the STI subsector and engage access to data and information. We said in the morning forum, access to information is very key, and it's also show the previous completed research outputs and research projects. So this one will help us to avoid the issues of duplication, because you find if we don't have this data in one store, many people will be duplicating the same research and to be using a lot of resources to fund the same research which has been funded already. It will also provide a knowledge base that facilitates a STI policy dialogue, information there, providing recommendations to inform policy formulation and implementation. We know policies are very key, and we want our policies to have evidence-based. So we can get this from the research which have been funded. So when we go to implementation process, the development of our national repository, it has been a collaborative process. That means that is not only NRF we participated in this, but we had a comprehensive data stakeholders mapping exercise where we reached out to research institutions and research institutions and universities, where they nominated vocal persons who helped us to key in that data in our repository. We had also stakeholders engagement for buy-in. We had that public participation, because in every project we need to involve the public, because whatever monies we are using is for the public. And then we did repository data collection and uploading. So that is the process of implementation. So I'll just show you some key features of our repository. And one of the features is intuitive and user-friendly interface. When you go to our repository, you can easily access the data, and it's very friendly. And our repository is interoperable, where with other institutional repositories, and other institutions, because as I mentioned, we didn't want to come up with a repository to do away with the other repositories, but we want these institutional systems to work together. We are not here to say the others, they're not working, but we are here to have one store data storage. And now when you go to our repository, you'll see a registry of all repositories in Kenya. But because this is a continual process, we've not managed to put all, but we are going to put. And this register of repositories is categorized by the counties, because in Kenya we have different counties from the 47 counties. So we want all the research institutions in the 47 counties that they are paying our repository. And another key feature is we have a very powerful search and filtering capabilities, where you can search by subject, by author, title, the funder, and also the category or the date of issue, that is the publication. Then our repository also provides analytics reports, where in each research article you can see the number of views. You can also then see the number of downloads. So as a researcher, you will be able to track how many people are visiting your article and how many people have downloaded it. And when we are seeing the views, you can also see how many, the viewership is from which countries. If it's from Kenya, from UK, that one will get it from our repository. It shares a comprehensive data management where we are planning to the researchers to upload their data sets from where they are. So that if you want to publish your research output or publication, you can just do it from your institutions. And just to mention, we have our open access policy, which has been adopted by our Board of Trustees. And this policy will manage how the repository will be handled, right from the admin and the users. Another thing we have in our repository is now the researchers' profiles. We know we are in the STI sector, so we want to create profiles for our researchers in Kenya. So if there is any researcher from maybe different country, they are looking for an expert in a certain area, they can easily get you and connect with you. And this one, we want to increase the collaborations among researchers. From Pleng's presentation, we've seen we do a lot of collaborative research. So from this, we'll be able to matchmake our researchers with other researchers from other countries. And that is one of the key, that is one of the key features we feel it's good. So we have also data management, comprehensive data management. That is what I was talking about, and the researchers. So I just want to, I click on these links so that you can just have a view of how our repository looks like. And if you want to have access, you can also scan here and to go direct to our repository. So I think it's still loading. So if you have scanned, I think you can go to our repository homepage. We give them a minute, they are loading. So when you go to our repository, we have you can browse by collections. We have the register of repositories. Yeah, good, it's there. We have the reports, we have the publications and research profiles. For research profiles, we have not input, but we are working on it. So I just want to get to the research publications. I show you how you can. The research publication, now we go to one of the research articles. Research publications. So when you click on that one of energy, you can just go to any research yes, there. You can go to, yes, just click on that one. So when you click on this research article, you will be able to see what I was saying about the number of views, total downloads. You'll be able to see, I think the network is so slow, that's why. So that is where our repository is. And the next slide, it's now our future plans for our repository. We are planning on having an ongoing enhancement and user feedback integration, because I mentioned the development of the repository is still ongoing. So we want to have this continuous improvement based on the feedback we are going to get from the researchers and the users. And this will ensure that our platform remains relevant and it meets the effective needs of the research community. Second upgrade is to expansion and innovation, where we plan to expand the repository scope to include new thematic areas and integrate cutting-edge technologies like AI-driven data analysis. Call to action. Our call to you today is to encourage you, the researchers and research institutions which are here to present and actively participate in the repository by contributing the data, that is the research data, and also publications and other resources. And also we invite you to share your experiences and suggestions on how we can work together and improve and refine our repository. If you need more information about our repository, you can visit us to our booths and to explain more. That is our contact. If you want to contact us, you can reach out through those, the email address, or you can visit our website and get our contacts there. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Jackie, for that presentation. And let's applaud our presenters today. This time we are coming to the end of training workshop today and the awareness workshop. And we really appreciate you. We have seen the initiatives that we are making probably at the regional level in terms of what our colleagues from NRF South Africa have presented. You can see the initiatives that we are making also at the national level. And as Jacqueline has explained, the repository is work in progress. We would appreciate your feedback. We would have Jacqueline and colleagues sitting at the National Research Fund Pavilion outside here for more input, for more feedback, and any other query that you may be having. So for now, I just want to appreciate everyone for coming. I know we called you on short notice, but you can see the kind of response we have got. And let's clap for ourselves. Thank you, and I think we come to the end of the meeting, and we invite you for lunch. Lunch will be served in the first floor. Thank you.
This equipment is very, very important in that prior to its acquisition, we had ones that had a limit, like the atomic absorption spectrophotometer. So it will not only separate and hold a very minute level of separating substances that could be in a sample. So it limited our staff a lot. So we had to spend together with them a lot of money keeping them to ship those samples, like even outside Kenya. And that usually now ends up expending a lot of time. The researchers will not get the results quickly. Perhaps if they have to make now inferences and conclusions